So I'm going to get stuck in straight away. As you know, most of us have felt safe and not safe in our lives. As thank you, Noreen. At all times, it changes, and it's very much a an individual experience for feeling safe or not safe. And one of the things that perhaps an example that I can use for you is I've just had an image pop into my head of somebody, me, sitting at a little lake, sitting at a lake and watching the ducks, and sitting on a bench alone and watching the ducks, on the lake or whatever, right? And for me, that may be a beautiful, peaceful feeling of safety, being out in nature, being able to watch the ducks, etc. For another person, sitting alone on a bench in a park, in a public space, could mean could feel very uncomfortable, could signal signs of danger. They may be looking around and seeing other people, they may be noticing that they are alone. And due to life's experience or personal beliefs or whatever is theirs, that situation may be very uncomfortable and very unsafe for them. But for me, in that circumstance, it's perfectly lovely and safe. So it is very much an individual experience. And so it's sometimes difficult to tell. I can explain to you how I'm feeling in the moment, but our dogs can't explain that to us if they're feeling safe or not. And so one of the things I think we need to realize, we recognize the obvious signals. We recognize if a dog has their tails tucked, if their body language is made small, if they're looking fearful. It's obviously in humans as well. We can see if they're avoiding eye contact, their body language is very small, they're avoiding the situation, they're not communicating. All of those things are going to give us signals and signs that they don't feel safe in that environment or in that event. But for our dogs, it's some of the obvious ones, like I said, tail tucked, ears back. We're used to recognizing those fear signals. But what happens if they are a little bit confusing? So here's another example. What happens if you're in a social situation? Let's say you're at a social gathering of some kind, and you're a little bit of an introvert, right? And people come up to you, and it's a new group that you don't know, and some people come up and say, "Hi, what's your name? Tell us all about yourself." Blah blah blah. And some of us may blush and go, "Oh, hi," and starts a little bit sweaty pause, but we're still smiling, we're still engaging, but we're feeling inside, our heart rate is going, we've got sweaty paws, as I said, sweaty hands, and we're not feeling comfortable. It's a very uncomfortable, sort of stressed state for us. The question is, are we safe enough to engage? Because there's that little barrier, there's that aroused state or a little bit stressful. Are we still able to engage, or do we withdraw and say, "Thank you, I'm quickly rushing off to get, I forgot something in the car." And off we go, and, maybe not come back to that situation, or maybe just avoid the contact, whatever that is. So again, and for another person who's really, outgoing and social, they may feel really great in a crowd of new people. It's like, oh, excitement, I get to learn to meet new people, etc. So it can look very different. And one of the things that many humans do, specifically women, and dogs do this too, is fawn behavior. So we know about the fight, flight, freeze, okay? And there's also the fiddle about and fawn behavior, which are also signs of stress, signs of discomfort, and signs that the individual is not feeling safe. This fawn behavior is, as I say, quite prevalent in us women. We learn to please. It's like appeasement behavior in dogs, right? It's this appeasing. You want to please everybody. You want to smile and, do whatever if anybody would like you to do, blah, blah, blah. You play the game even though you don't want to. You go to the party even though you don't want to. All of those things, because we're fawning. It's this fawn appeasement behavior. It doesn't mean that we're feeling safe and comfortable in that situation, but we do it anyway. And this is something I think which our dogs we have to consider. And I saw a perfect example of it yesterday on our walk. We met up with, along the way, we met up with some people I don't know, and they had a little dog, and she said, "Can I let my dog off the lead?" to say hello to your dogs? And I said, yes, we'll do that. We found a little place where they could move around. We did that. And Layla went and sniffed the little dog, but wasn't comfortable with the people. So she ran up to the people and she started jumping, like, sort of shoulder height, to say hello, sort of jump. And she doesn't normally do that. She will beg for treats from other people, being a Labrador, but she doesn't normally do that. It was an over excessive greeting behavior to a stranger, complete stranger. And I knew in that moment that she didn't feel safe. What triggered that in her, I don't know, because she's not scared of people, but she was really highly aroused, let's say. I knew the difference. That person didn't know the difference. She looked like a happy dog who just wanted to greet him. But I could see that she was doing this really over-the-top fawning behavior, like, hello, I'm here, hello, I'm here. And I knew straight away that she didn't feel safe, whether it was the dog or the person or the whatever. But it was my cue to say, come on, let's move on, let's keep going. So it's really about knowing your individual dog. When they are feeling safe, how do they behave? And when they aren't feeling safe, what does it look like that's different? Because sometimes it doesn't look like fear. It doesn't look like discomfort. It can look very different for your individual dog. So maybe some of you that are here with me this morning want to share maybe something different that your dog does, that that they're feeling uncomfortable or not safe in a specific situation. But to an outsider, it doesn't look like that. To an outsider, it looks, maybe like friendly behavior or something like that. So maybe I'd love to hear if you can type in the chat. Tell me what you can, whoops. I'm just trying to see if there's any comments coming through. Tell me if you can, what you've experienced with your dog. So Bliss goes completely wild. Yes, right? So some dogs will get the zoomies and people will say, oh, look, they're having so much fun. They're zooming around like crazy dogs. And that is also a sign that they're perhaps not feeling so safe in that situation. So again, going crazy, jumping up, or this fawn or this fiddle about, getting all silly, like the zoomies is something like a fiddle about, or dogs that will sit down and start scratching, or suddenly find something in the environment that's really interesting, like, oh, I need to go investigate this. That's kind of avoidance behavior, that sometimes that they don't normally do in normal situations. It's different. What is my dog doing different? All right, so not just looking for the stress signals, but what's my dog doing different that I can see? Other one, the difference between being safe and feeling safe. So again, here's an example, and I've used this one in the past, but I think it's a good one, is when we moved to our new neighborhood here in Austria. When I was passing a certain neighbor's property, they have two big Weimaraners who used to charge the fence and really bark and bash the fence and make a loud noise. And I would say to Charlie, don't worry, we'll cross the road. I'll give you plenty of space. I'll put you on this side of me, so I'm protecting you, and we'll walk past, and don't worry, it's safe. And I thought for weeks and months when we did this, eventually he would get used to it. He would realize the Weimaraners are not going to get out their property. He would realize that I've given us distance and I'm putting me in between him and the dogs. The situation is safe, right? We would think. But for him it wasn't. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter how many times we try to do that or train that or whatever, desensitize that, it didn't work. And it was only clear to me that that was my perception of safety. That was my perception of what I knew. The dogs weren't going to do anything. I knew they couldn't get out the property, but that wasn't his perception, right? And so we just have to, your dog is always speaking their truth, and we have to honor that. We have to honor that. Even if we think the situation is safe, if they feel unsafe, it means they feel unsafe. End of story. All right. So, after I realized that, I just missed that street altogether. I found another route. We started driving to our walks, all that kind of thing. And then suddenly, that wasn't an issue anymore. The trust was coming back because, I was putting him in situations that weren't okay for him, even though I thought they were okay. Even I thought they were safe. He didn't think so. Another thing to consider is what affects that perception, right? What affects that perception? So, for instance, I'm not saying I don't know Charlie's very early puppyhood. We got him at 9 months from the shelter. But let's say he maybe had an experience with Weimaraner. Maybe he had an experience with big dogs rushing up to him and bullying him or something like that. I've never had that experience with that specific breed. I've had it with German Shepherds, and I'm very cautious of German Shepherds. But I've never had that with Weimaraners. So for me, that situation was safe. But what had affected his perception, we don't know. What experience had he had before? Or even if he hadn't had a specific experience, how was his perception influenced by his nervous system? Because being a puppy that, according to the shelter, was found on the street as a very young dog, spent the first 9 months of his life in a shelter, his nervous system probably didn't develop in the way a normal dog's nervous system developed. So his nervous system was primed to recognize signs of danger, and sometimes even when there aren't any, because it's just his nervous system was primed, danger, danger, danger at every corner. So again, his nervous system, his brain, his memories, all of that would have influenced the way he feels in that situation. And I can't change that. I can't change that. I can only recognize it and support him through that. Sandra says Monty does this. He goes crazy, then he switches quickly to stiff body and growls if the person tries to touch. Yes, and it's confusing, right, Sandra? It's confusing sometimes for people because they think, oh, look, he's going all silly. He wants to greet me. He's so excited. But the moment the person touches or reaches out to touch, they go, it's like, oh gosh, what's wrong with your dog? So it can be confusing for us as humans. They're excitable. Behavior may look friendly, but it's not necessarily friendly. Good. So thank you for those examples. What else? Yeah, so some of the other things that we can look for, some of the more subtle signs that we can look for if our dogs are in stress, is things like, which you don't often see specifically because it's of the undersurface or depending on the temperature, is things like sweaty paws. Just like we get sweaty hands when we feel nervous, dogs get sweaty paws, and you probably won't notice this unless they're walking on a surface where you can see a paw print, like a concrete or a road or something like that, where you can suddenly see a little damp paw print. So sometimes that's not a very obvious sign, but there is one to say that internally the body is in stress, even if externally you can't see that. Other things are like the pupils dilated. Your dog's the pupils will dilate really large. That's also another signal that internally the system is not feeling comfortable. Another one which is unusual to look at is the saliva of your dog. So what saliva have they currently got? Is it sort of just dribbling saliva, clear saliva, or is it a little bit foamy? The more foamy the saliva of the dog, the more indication of the higher stress level. So if your dog has got a lot of foamy things, they love to suddenly pick up something and chew, and they get this sort of foamy saliva, that can be a signal that your dog's stress levels are rising. A dog who suddenly wants to wee and poo a lot, or Charlie was such a giveaway. The moment we had even if it was a calm greeting with another dog, literally 5 minutes after that, he would do a really runny yellow stinky poo. Even just a small little squat, but it was a runny yellow stinky poo, and straight away I knew that was a stress poo for him. So those can be signals that sometimes we don't notice because, again, externally there was nothing to see in his body language or that he was uncomfortable, but the internal system is still telling us that there is some level of stress in that situation and they're not feeling safe. Another one, Layla, I see this in Layla, is the white dandruffy dry flakes of skin suddenly rise to the surface of their hair, and this can literally happen within minutes of a stressful situation or within a stressful situation, and And I can see this on Layla because she has, you know, short black coat and the white, what do you call it, dandruff comes to the top really quickly. And that was, you know, a big clue. When I showed my husband that, he was like, oh my gosh, how quickly it happens. Literally within minutes, you're stroking her and you can see these white flakes on top of her body. So that's again an indication of internal stress, but externally you can't see a thing in their behavior. So who else has got something like that, where you can see where you may have learned to identify signs of dog not feeling safe or stressful, but with their outward behavior, it's not very obvious? Anyone else got some examples there? Noreen says, we did a session with training that Kaiser wasn't comfortable with, and he kept trying to herd me towards the gate. Brilliant. Our dogs are so darn clever. Man, are they clever. So yes, so you know, why would he suddenly do that? So what is the behavior that's suddenly different, that's suddenly uncomfortable? Very often dogs will turn to behaviors that are naturally instinctive to them when they're feeling stressed. Things like chasing, hunting, herding, nipping, all of those things that are normally part of the hunting prey drive cycle. These come out apparently more, right? They are more apparent when they're in a stressed state. So if your dog starts to get, as I say, nippy, Charlie does that. He gets really nippy, he gets hard mouth nippy. You know, if I've got something in my hand, if I've got a ball or a stick or a toy or something, or a treat, you know, he will get very grabby and nippy when he's in a sort of a stressed state. So that's another one. So those kind of behaviors to look out for. Sandra says, I can tell by Monty's pupils, his eyes are brown, so it's really obvious. Yes, that's a good one. So a lot of dogs have got very dark eyes, you don't see it, but if a dog has brown eyes, you can see suddenly the pupil has taken space from that brown eyes to suddenly a lot more black. So yes, a good example there. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, so all of these things are not always obvious, and things to just, it's just observation. It's just keeping a diary, if you like to do that kind of thing, to say what have I noticed that my dog does when they're not feeling safe. So what are some of the signs that they are feeling safe then? Generally, those are behaviors when you can see a lot of relaxed body language, that's not hyped up behavior like we talked about, that arousal level is not there. But it can be, you know, if a dog is, let's say they are playing with another dog and feeling very comfortable in that relationship, then there can be some aroused play in there, and that's totally okay. It's what they do after and during and with that. So are they able to down-regulate really quickly? Are they able to take lots of sniffy breaks in between? So are they playing and then they take a break and then they do some sniffing and then come back to playing, that kind of thing. So they can self-regulate themselves really easily, and they're willing to continue in that, you know, in that play or that interaction. Then they probably are feeling safe. Getting to know your individual dog. My dogs, the signs that I know that they're feeling safe is that they engage a lot in the environment. So for instance, Charlie was very, at the beginning he was on walks, he wasn't, all he was doing is focused on me. He was a ball junkie, so he just wanted to play ball all the time. He was never interested in sniffing smells and engaging in the environment. None of that, besides chasing wildlife. That was that was his thing. But he wasn't engaged in that. Now, if I know he's comfortable in an environment, it's because he's slowed down, he's sniffing everything, he's looking, he's engaged, he's very engaged in the environment. Other dogs, that might look different. Other dogs, too much engagement in the environment means almost like it's so distracting. They're so distracted by the sounds and the smells and everything that they're actually too aroused in that environment, and they're rushing through everything, and they, you know, haven't got time of day to concentrate. They can't focus on you, they can't listen to you, all of these things because they're too engaged in the environment, because that they're feeling unsafe. So again, it can look so different for each dog. So maybe you can tell me, what signs do you know that your dog is feeling safe? When can you tell that they are feeling safe in an environment or feeling safe in an event? What are your signs that your dogs show you then So like I said, for Charlie, it's slowing down his pace and engaging more in the environment. Sandra says when Nigella is stressed, she has to carry something. Yes, yes, yes. A lot of dogs do that. And it's actually sometimes such a really great tool to have if you have something in your pocket that you can ask them to carry, or a glove or a toy or something that they can carry in their mouths, because that helps them to feel more safe, for sure, for sure. So does anybody else know what are the signs that your dog is feeling safe, is comfortable in an environment? Let me think of some more from my dogs. What does Layla do when she's feeling safe? When Layla's feeling safe, she also explores the environment, and she won't be so close to me. She stays very close to me if she's not feeling safe. She likes to keep very close to me. But if I know if she's exploring more and she's moving out a little bit into the environment, and I actually have to sometimes call her or go and find her, then that's her way of feeling safe. So I guess it's also more, she's more engaged in the environment and less on me if she's actually feeling safe and comfortable. Sleeping, obviously she will fall asleep really easily in a safe environment, where if she's not safe, she's actually constantly sort of on guard, or waking up to every noise. But if she's feeling safe, she can sleep through almost every noise without a problem. So again, sort of a sound sensitivity is a thing I know. If she's feeling unsafe or safe, she will, noises don't bother her. But if she's feeling unsafe, then noises certainly do bother her. Yeah. Any other comments coming through this? I think, let me just check. I just wanted to see my notes here, if I had anything. That's the other thing. One last thing I think we'll talk about here is pain and discomfort. And I was having a conversation with a colleague recently last week, and we were talking about ourselves. We were talking about ourselves as humans and aging humans, getting on, and we don't feel like spring chickens anymore. And one of the things for me is I feel a little bit unsafe I'm not as flexible. I'm not as easily adaptable. I can't just jump up and down steps and jump over things, and even getting in and out the car or going down a flight of steps. I have to pay a little bit more attention to what I'm doing than I used to. It was used to be very automatic. I now feel a little bit unsafe because I don't have the flexibility that I used to have when I was younger. And so again, it suddenly dawned on me how our dogs can, with aging, suddenly feel a little bit more uncomfortable to do certain things, or they need to give more attention to certain things. And that in my body, there's certain situations where I don't feel safe now. One of them is when it's icy outside and I have to walk somewhere and it's icy. As a kid, it was like, oh, well, just walk over, and if you fall down, boom, you just get up and walk again. Or ice skating. I used to ice skate, it was fine. Now, I wouldn't dream of ice skating. The fear of it just straight away makes me feel totally uncomfortable. And same with walking on a street where there is ice. So suddenly I've realized my safety in certain situations is due to, again, me feeling comfortable with inside my body. Do I feel confident in my flexibility, in my reaction speed, etc.? And I think this is something we miss a lot in our dogs. And they don't have to be old dogs. They can even be middle-aged, going on. I noticed it in Charlie. His flexibility is not there anymore. And he certainly doesn't feel safe in a lot of situations where he used to. He doesn't feel safe anymore. And specifically, on slippy floors, on where there are lots of people, who wants to touch him, that kind of thing. He wants more space, etc. So again, considering what the body feels like. Does the body feel safe? And it doesn't have to necessarily mean the dog is in pain. It's just, as I say, for me, it's a kind of confidence in my own flexibility is just not there anymore. So maybe that's something our dogs experience too. I'm sure they do. All right, everybody. So then I think that's all the things that I wanted to mention today. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to mention. Is there anything else that somebody would like to share about that as well? Would love to hear your comments, love to hear how your dogs feel safe or don't feel safe, how that works out for you, because it's good to hear what other, what other people's experiences are, or how other dogs respond, so that we can sometimes recognize those signals in our own dogs. But certainly we have to be the detective. We are the ones who have to notice and observe all the different signs that are real for our dog, and never ever ever doubt when they say I'm not feeling safe. Never ever ever doubt that and say, well, there's no reason to be not safe because it's perfectly safe here. It's that dog's perception of how they are feeling, and we have to honor that. And the moment you honor that is the moment you step into that place of trust and support for your dog, instead of saying, can't do that. Thanks, Noreen. Yes, have a great day, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the chat, and we will see you next Tuesday. Have a good one. Bye for now.